And we're live. Welcome everybody back to the Wednesday live stream of Proud Masculine. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have an extra special guest who is somebody I've been knowing for about 5 years now, and personally who's helped me through many things. And I've been a part of some of his journey as he's been a part of mine. And he's an accomplished author, trainer, U.S. Marine. Is it recon? Right, recon?
Oh, I was counterintelligence, but I was attached to a force reconnaissance unit for about a year and a half. So I can sort of wear the label, sort of.
So it's great to have him on the show tonight. Lysander Caligo. And he's going to tell us, let him tell you about it. I've heard most of the story. He's going to tell you the good stuff. So how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are we doing today?
Fucking fantastic. Best day I've had in a while. Got some good sleep. Got a lot done today. Hit the gym. Now I'm here doing my favorite thing. And so we're going to start off with a little rapid fire just to get the juices flowing. So I know a little bit about what you do, but what do you do for the morning? What do you do when you get up? What's Lysander's morning routine?
First thing I do when I wake up is I make my bed. Well, I go to the bathroom. I usually play with my dog for a couple seconds. Like the second I roll over, I kind of grab him and we kind of play and I let him know like, hey, we're awake, let's go. Then I get him off the bed and I make my bed right away. I kind of order my room up and then I put on shorts and some running shoes. And I try to put on, this sounds so weird, but I try to put on like the shortest shorts I possibly could put on without being too offensive. And then I go and I take my dog for a walk for about 20 minutes and I try to get as much sun on my body as possible.
Nice.
And the thing that I've kind of realized with that is I think a lot of people, number one, are scared to go and do something like that. So that's something that I really make a habit of. You know, the next thing is feeling weird about doing it. So you kind of have to face that. It's like, well, I'm getting out here. I'm getting the sun on my skin. I'm getting nutrients, getting tan. And then the next thing is too, man, like walking around boldly without your shirt on, with minimal clothes on, you have to have some type of physical appearance. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it wraps a whole lot of stuff in there. But then I'm also walking for 20 minutes around a loop. It's not just letting my dog sniff whatever. Hey, we're walking. We're getting some exercise. We're getting some steps in. We're getting sun. We're getting nutrients. And then we're setting our day that way. So that's usually about it from there. I don't really try to do too much else as far as like a ritual other than like taking my proper vitamins and stuff like that. Like I have a good set of vitamins and different things that I take right away and then go from there. And if you want me to go into the supplements I take, I'll be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, let's hear it. What are you getting into? And
so some of the biggest things I like to take is definitely a probiotic. I take ashwagandha first thing in the morning. I take L-tyrosine, which is a really good like a nootropic, along with phosphatidylserine. Good multivitamin. I don't go too crazy with it, but I take a good multivitamin. I take a little green supplement as well, and that's kind of about it.
So are you fasted in the morning? Are you doing some kind of intermittent fasting? Or?
I fast until about 4 p.m. every day, 3 to 4 p.m. every day. Unless it's so then I kind of have a crazy schedule for my diet, which I've been sticking to for about 2 to 3 years now, which has been probably like one of the greatest things. I do 2 days of no carb and I do 1 day of carb. So on my carb days, because I've been depleted for 2 days and however long I did, sometimes I'll break fast around noon with my first meal so I can get my glycogen restored. And then usually I'll blast the workout out after that, or I'll go to jiu-jitsu. So on my carb days, I break fast kind of earlier because I have to feed that day. I have to get carbs in and I have to stuff my belly with food. But on my no carb days, it's definitely stuck at like a 4 p.m. Like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. is about where I'm at.
Nice. Well, you look good, so you're doing it right.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
You look tanner than me, though. How's that happening?
Wait, what?
Huh?
What'd you say?
I said you're tanner than me. How the hell did that happen?
Louisiana, baby. Summertime. We get early summer.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like
It's already
100 degrees out today right now.
Yeah, it's already 90 something out here. So good, awesome. And then what is the last book you read?
Last book that I've actually read. Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. Read
Nice.
that last month. It's really been, I've been going down that path of, I've found some philosophers recently that I've kind of been on board with that are kind of moving towards this new mindset. Not new mindset. I mean, I've been cultivating it for years now. I just didn't realize and have it kind of directly set up. And yeah, I've been really big into that lately.
Good. I suggest
Not an easy read though, I can tell you that much. It's better to just go and watch videos on this stuff and see what other people say, what he says, and get along with that. But
yeah, well, you pick up more when you read, I believe.
Absolutely. You should never take anyone's word at face value. I'll tell you this because I could tell you, I have a degree in philosophy. And I remember my philosophy 101 teacher. And I remember him discussing Nietzsche as well. And he's like, and this is where they give like kind of the brief synopsis of what each of these philosophers have. And I remember him saying that Nietzsche was the father of nihilism. He was the philosopher of nihilism. And I remember at the time kind of thinking like, no, not really, but I didn't know too much about Nietzsche, but I was like, okay, I'll go with it, right? Obviously. And if you actually really dig deep into Nietzsche, he's like the counter opposite. He's the first one that named nihilism. But what he was doing was he was arguing against nihilism. And he was kind of talking about how like the decline of Western culture is leading to this nihilism of the people. He calls them the last men. These people are going to take over. They're going to be nihilists. They're not going to have any belief systems. And it's up to certain men to become the Übermenschen, right? The Übermensch, right? The Superman. And there's going to be a great divide between the Superman and the last man. And the last man is essentially going to tear down society. And it's up to the Übermensch, the Superman, the above man, to either fight back or regain it or rebuild a future for these types of people, people that are greater than the standard average of what humanity is today. And it's kind of funny because, obviously my channel title, even though I haven't been too active on that, is A God Amongst Men. And like, little did I know that everything that he had written about and everything he stood for was exactly what I was talking about too. So,
well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that way you adopted God Amongst Men, that belief.
And I mean, clearly the big thing though was that my whole thing, the whole creation of the channel had come from, my life up to that point, but then all the spiritual stuff that I had delved into, going into the other side, going into the other dimensions, going through different types of journeys and different types of things in both my physical life and also in the spiritual world and all that stuff. And I came back from, I think, my first Iboga experience. And it's like, all right, God Amongst Men, I got to create this YouTube channel. I got to go and do this stuff. And like all of those things were kind of wrapped into it all. So
don't give away too much because that's going to be part of we don't want to hear. I want you to tell.
Yeah, no worries.
So, we're limited for time here, but good answers, fucking interesting mindset and philosophy as always.
Always.
Very, very complex, but well-intentioned, and it's a purpose. And that's what we're going to hear your story so you can get to that. So why don't we start on that? Tell us about childhood, a brief synopsis of.
I'll try to run quick with it. So
I know there's a lot.
Italian side of my family is one half, and then the other side is German, right? Protestant on the German side, Roman Catholic on the Italian side. Grew up in Connecticut on the East Coast, which had just quite a lot of like puritanical belief systems too. A lot of like black and white structures, very waspy, very cold, very whatever, very brought up in like these rigid rules, and as well as like a very rigid like social class as well. Mom and dad, I'm pretty sure they're still married. Younger sister who's about 10 and a half months younger than me. Pretty sure I had a father who didn't really, I don't know what it was, but he and I are just, it's not that we're oil and vinegar. It's just that the overall feeling, the overarching feeling is that like I stole something from him when I was born. And there's this like hatred there. You could feel it. It's like a palpable hatred that he had towards me. And being the firstborn, I was the firstborn in the firstborn of the generation in my family. So I am the patriarch of the new generation. And being a male, there was something also to that too. So my dad was very, very hard on me, and there wasn't a lot of love or emotion, which I'm not trying to say there should be, but there shouldn't be. But it was to the extent of where it was like, it was either, there's two modes for my dad. He was either just nothing or rage, right? So my dad looked at every solution and everything as like a hammer and nail solution. So his answer for everything was just to use that one tool for everything. So my dad didn't really start beating me until I was about 7 years old. And I think that was about the age where he kind of looked at me and said, all right, he needs to learn how cruel the world is. So I became an adult at about the age of 7 as well, where I had to start taking over a lot of the responsibilities in the household. And the reason why I bring this stuff up is because my sister was raised the complete opposite. My sister, being 10 and a half months younger than me, was treated as like this little Italian princess who could do no wrong. She could get away with arguing, back talking. She didn't have to do any work. She didn't have to live up to any type of standard or anything. Whereas like for me, it was like, you have chores, your chores will be inspected. It's funny because what friends I did have, when they looked upon my life, they called me Cinderella, because it was like, I was like the abused stepchild in a way, where like I had to take care of like all the duties and responsibilities inside the house.
And what did that do? Like, how did you view yourself growing up? Did you think it was just normal, or could you sense some abnormality and have some self-esteem or self-perception issues? Like, did you feel like you stuck out, you were different, or did you just like, oh well, it's just?
I think subconsciously, more so, and I'm going to be honest with you, more so, I was kind of more in like survival mode.
Yeah,
I was hyper vigilant. I was hyper aware. I always knew what time my dad, like, just like in the back of my mind, knowing when my dad was going to come home, and I was counting down. So I had to get on my P's and Q's and make sure everything was okay. And then when he was home, it was like everything was on eggshells. Like, you try not to go around him and do any of this other stuff. You try not to ask him any questions.
Stay invisible.
Stay invisible. And like the other thing was like, I always had to like take the temperature of the room. I had to know what was going on. I had to like intuitively or instinctually, or even just, cognizantly, like be there and like assess and understand what was going on with the dynamic between everybody. And I think at the point, at that age, at 7, my sister watched my dad beat the piss out of me. Like, legitimately, my dad like beat the living shit out of, not shit. Like I fucking pissed myself. That's how bad my dad was beating me. Right. Like, he just kept going and going and going, threw me in the shower, all this other stuff. And my sister saw me in the shower, and I was just crying and shaking. And my sister looked at me in that moment after that, and like, she just said, like, I could see it in her eyes, like, I'll never be like that. So my sister chose kind of like to side with my dad and manipulate my dad a certain way. And then my mom kind of understood too, like, oh shoot, this dude is a fucking wild animal at some point. So it's like everybody kind of just sided with him, and they said, all right, well, he's the punching bag. Like, I was the punching bag. What's that?
You're the diversion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let you absorb all the negative attention.
Yeah.
The sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, in a way. But I will say this, though. I'm trying to paint this picture as though, and I'm just giving an idea of what my life was like. I sit back now and I extrapolate a lot of the things that I had to go through now. And I say that, like, I learned some pretty wild stuff from that experience that makes me and separates me from a lot of different people. And,
Sure.
the thing was too, though, I had to do, and this is going to be part of my future story that as we get to it, but like, I had to like work with all that, and I had to mold it into who I am today. Whereas a lot of people today will take that story alone and just throw their lives away. So
Absolutely. That's the common result of that is addiction, prison, self-destructive,
for sure, suicide,
victims.
Yep.
So you go through childhood, and obviously it's rough, and your place at home. It's moving through like your childhood, coming out of adolescence, into puberty, like your teenage years, high school. What did that look like?
So it's funny because I kind of started being a little bit. I had an older neighbor, and I had a lot of older friends in like my, I guess, adolescence. And it's funny because like I was doing pretty good with girls, and I was kind of popular at that time a little bit, but I was still kind of awkward, obviously, because of all the stuff I had going on at home. And then hitting pretty much middle school is when obviously you have that divergence too as well, where now you're a preteen and the girls are preteens, and then they're starting to get attention from high school kids and all that stuff. So there's probably a good lull between 13 years old to probably about 16 or 17, where you go through that awkward phase where you're kind of the nobody, obviously being a whatever, like a freshman and having that status and all that other stuff. But then I would say around like my junior, senior year, I had they were always my friends, but I had a core group of guys, like 3 other buddies. And we were kind of just like the middle, like we were like kind of the middle pack dudes, where we were big and strong enough and funny enough or whatever, and attractive enough where we didn't get picked on too much. Like we had some respect from the upper levels, and we had respect from the lower levels of people, if we're talking status wise. So that was kind of that. I grew up playing hockey, played lacrosse, started getting into paintball when I was younger. So I was kind of doing like different things that most people don't really do either, like the football or the baseball and stuff like that, where you kind of get you become popular through that and all that.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me stop you there. How were you with like being raised the way you were with abuse? How were you with aggression? Did you fight a lot? Did you turn into a protector? Did you what?
I think I harbored a lot of it. And I had different types of activities that I would do, but I played hockey, so fighting was okay in hockey. And there was enough. It was like aggressive enough too. And then like obviously there'd be fights in the locker room and stuff. We'd like locker box and stuff. But it wasn't really that well channeled. But when I would get really upset at home, like I definitely like punched holes in walls and stuff like that. That's how, like, if the rage came out, it was like I started punching holes in doors and walls and stuff like that. And it's funny because I wouldn't really get in trouble for that though. It was weird.
Maybe he was proud of you in some sense, that you were showing some fucking, I don't know, some resilience, some anger. Maybe he liked that. Maybe.
I think that's what it was it was almost like there was a respect for because like, hey, you're going to this over emotional state, which I think is because that's what he would do. You know what I mean? And I think that was kind of the model that was set up for him as well growing up too. So that could possibly be it.
So you go through your high school years. It doesn't sound like anything dysfunction abnormal. It sounds like you had a pretty good high school experience, and
it wasn't terrible.
I know what happens next, but so you come out of high school. When did you make that decision that you were going to be a U.S. Marine?
So I got a pretty good story for that. I'll try to keep it short, but I had a conversation with a buddy about this, and obviously if you follow my channel or have listened to me previously, I'm a big believer in mythology and the hero's journey and so on and so forth, and believing in archetypes and so on. I think that's important for everybody. And then, the hero's journey is one of those big ones in answering your call to adventure so that you can be transformed into the hero, right? 16 and a half, when I was 16 and a half, my dad took me to the Yankees-Red Sox baseball game. It's the last game that they played at the old Yankee Stadium in New York City. It was September 9th, 2001. My dad, obviously, we talked about this, not a very loving, caring type of person. He brought me to this, and it was like, hey, we're going to do this, son. We're going to do a father-son thing. This is going to be cool kind of deal. And I'm like, oh, crazy. This is great. Go to New York City. We've never really done that before. Go and watch this baseball game. And as I'm leaving the game on the bus, I remember we're a couple blocks down from the Twin Towers, and I see the reflection of the Twin Towers in the background. And this is literally, like I said, a couple blocks away. And I just turn and I look up at the buildings, and I'm just like in awe. I'm like, wow, this is insane to see, like, just these feats of like human ingenuity, right? Like, this is wild to see. Fast forward 2 days, we're now September 11th, 2001. I'm in my Spanish class. I believe it's like 8:49 or something like that. My Spanish teacher like wheels and a TV. You remember the TV with the laser disc and the TV strapped to it and all this other stuff.
The big ratchet strap on it.
Yeah. And then plugs it in and goes and sits at the back of the class. And we see tower. I think it was Tower 2 that was on fire and all this other stuff. And I think we saw the second tower get hit, where we figured out and quickly learned that this was a terrorist attack and it wasn't just an accident. Mm-hmm. And the alarms for the school just start going off, and they literally come over the speaker and they say, "Hey, school's closed. Everybody go home. Like, don't go to work. Don't do nothing. Go home." And I was supposed to work that day. I worked at a supermarket at the time. I was a stock boy. It was my first like legit legal job as a 16-year-old. And they closed down. And I remember seeing Tower 7 fall at like 5:45 that afternoon. And I remember sitting there. I just got my license and I'm driving my dad's car, like he has 2 cars. I'm driving, it's a beat up, shitty super station wagon. And I remember feeling this thing where it says, "Get up right now, drive to New York City and go help pull people out of the rubble." And I stood up in that moment to go grab the keys. And then all the fear just rushed into my stomach right then. Is like, what's your dad going to do to you? Right? You're about to leave for God knows how long. You're going to go into a quote unquote terrorist zone, right? You're going to miss work. You're going to miss school. Like, you're going to literally come home after like stealing your dad's car essentially. And you're going to get your ass beat worse than anything that ever happened. And that fucking feeling sat me back down in my chair. And then I remember feeling this pit in my stomach of just shame, right? Of like, you didn't answer this call, right? I remember this feeling. Now, fast forward a year from now, right? And I'm getting ready to graduate high school and I still have no clue what I'm going to do. I didn't have parents like most or some people did, where it's like, "Hey, son, what would you like to do after school? Hey, do you want to go to college? What kind of career field do you want to get? Okay, this is how you get student loans," or, "Hey, we're going to cover X amount." This conversation never happened. It was just like 18, you're out of the house kind of deal. So I'm choosing between right now to go become a state trooper in Connecticut or to become a chef. Don't want to become a chef because I don't want to work 12-hour days and get fat in the kitchen. And I don't want to become a cop because at the time I didn't really like cops, but it was like, hey, these are the 2 things that seem okay to me, whatever. Come to find out, you got to go into debt for all these jobs and I didn't really want to do it and blah, 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 blah. So I'm at a party and I'm having a beer. We're sitting around a campfire. And I remember hearing someone say something in the background. This is the side conversation behind me. They're like, "Oh my God, have you heard Jeff Cormier's coming back into town?" They're like, "Oh yeah, he just graduated Marine boot camp. He's coming home on leave." "Oh my God, man, that's so cool. Like, can you believe that? Like, have you heard like Marines need to like register themselves as lethal weapons when they come home and stuff?" Like, it wasn't so much the part that came up. It wasn't that piece that came up. It was more so the way that they were talking about him, of like, holy cow, like this guy, right? Like, look what he did kind of deal. Now, just to remind you of what's going on right now, Iraq had just gotten invaded. So it's like, shit. You got to go join. If you do this or go and join in the military, you're now going to go to war, right? So I was like, we'll see kind of deal. And like, I think 2 days later, I just got up and I just went to the recruiter's office and I chose Marines from that point. And I said, screw it. I don't care. I already live in a war zone. You know what I mean? Like, I can't stay here. I can't stay around these people. I can't stay in this household. I got to go. I got to go do something and I got to go make money. Might as well go make some money doing cool stuff, right? Like shooting guns and XYZ. So the Marines was the best choice.
What was your MOS?
When I first joined, I was a 6821. I was a METOC weather observer. And then I became a weather forecaster. And then when I was in Iraq in 2008, I moved over to counterintelligence, human intelligence.
All right. This is where the story starts to turn up a little bit. So Iraq was your first tour, right?
Correct.
And then take us through what led to this. Take us through the kind of what happened to lead us to this next part you're going to get into, going deploying to Afghanistan. Tell us about you getting hooked up with recon and what that looked like, and then how you wound up.
So let me go back a little bit first and kind of just explain. So something happened to me in Iraq. I was a weather forecaster at the time. I was a just recently promoted sergeant. I was 21, 22 years old, I think at the time. and I had been training my ass off to get in like some of the craziest shape possible. I was like, hey, if I'm going to Iraq, I'm going to freaking die a stud if I need to go and do this stuff. But as a weather guy, you don't really do anything, right? Like I sit on an airfield. And as a matter of fact, I mean, I had an important job, but it was just one of those jobs where it wasn't me. It was not anything I ever want to do. It's not what I chose. I kind of got roped into it. But in Iraq, I'm sitting there, I'm forecasting the weather, and I'm right outside where the Kazovac bird is. So it's a helicopter that's set up for picking up casualties. And right outside my base was Ramadi, and I get a call from the Kazovac bird that says, hey, we got to go pick up these 2 injured Marines. Can we go? That was essentially my job. My job was saying yes or no to these birds and to other things, because in the desert you have all sorts of crazy weather where it can ground birds really fast, and then you have an even bigger issue. So I saw this mist report come across, and it was 2 young Marines. It was a private and a lance corporal that had just literally stopped a cement truck filled with explosives to the brim. They stopped it at the gate, and the suicide bomber clacked it off, and they were about to kill all the Iraqi police and the platoon of Marines in this building behind, and they stopped them by engaging quickly. But those 2 lost their lives, unfortunately. So the mist report came across and said, hey, we have these guys that are in bad shape. And I was already on it, and I was just like, go, 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 go. Like, go get these guys. And I remember in that moment afterwards feeling as a 22-year-old sergeant in this pretty much bunkerized location, even though, I mean, still 2008 Iraq, we're still getting mortared. There's still other things going on, but it was like, you're pretty far removed from the threat. And I was just like, you're such a fucking coward. Like, you're such a bitch. Like, you should be out there and you should be doing something. You are able to prevent these things from happening to these young men, right? To your brothers. So I remembered back at one point I had a conversation with another guy, and he's like telling me all about counterintelligence, and that like snapped into my brain in that moment. I shit you not. That night I called back to Camp Pendleton, California to talk to a CI Human Marine recruiter. And I said, hey, like, I want to lat move to this job right now. He's like, well, I got to let you know, it's going to take like 6 months, blah, 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 blah. You got to go through all this stuff. And it was like another full-time job, essentially, while I was in Iraq doing my job, to lat move over to this job field with like a almost 0% chance of getting in. One of the hardest MOSs to get into, I've got to be honest with you. And then once you go to the schoolhouse, it has the second highest attrition rate outside of BUDS. So this is like kind of creme de la creme of types of people and jobs in the military to go to become a counterintelligence, human intelligence specialist. And I went full throttle at it. I finished all of my stuff in 4 months while I was working in Iraq. I was completely 100% dedicated to becoming a CI Human Marine. And I got accepted. Into it. And after I left Iraq, I came to Camp Pendleton, California, where I belonged to 1st Intelligence Battalion. I went through the schoolhouse after that, finding out that, hey, now the theater is going to change from Iraq to Afghanistan, and you're pretty much going to be like one of the forerunners of intelligence operatives to go into Afghanistan to collect information. So got out of the schoolhouse and instantly deployed to Afghanistan, attached to an infantry battalion, 3rd Marine 7th, 3rd Battalion 7th Marines. While I was in Afghanistan, though, we got the op order that we needed to take over a location from the Brits because they lost about 300 men in a year, which was crazy. Sang in Afghanistan. So I got the oppo pretty much saying, hey, you're going to fly into Sangin as the sole. There's going to be 14 Marines going in to pretty much take over this entire area from the Brits. You're going to rip with them. They're going to give you all this stuff. And you're going to go in there alone as the sole intelligence operative, and you're going to go and pretty much give the entire brief up to the regimental commander, but it went beyond the regimental commander. Your reports and your reporting and your source operations are going to be pretty much like front and center for the push for Americans to go into Sangin, Afghanistan. Now, most people will sit there and they'll say they know of what's it called? If you've ever seen the show Restrepo, most people know of that location, forgot the name of it, as like the deadliest place in Afghanistan. Well, that was the deadliest place in Afghanistan in I think 2009, 2010.
Was it the Panjshir Valley or something?
So I forgot. I think it began with a K. I can't remember the location.
Kandahar? No.
I forgot. Either way.
either way.
They say, "Oh, this was the deadliest location." Korngal Valley.
Korngal, that's right.
Yep, there you go. You're on it. Sangin was by far more significant acts than what was going on in Korngal at the time. Literally 2 or 3 days before I go into Sangin, I'm flying in on a CH-53. The PJs, Pedro 66 was shot down, killing all on board. This is four PJs, like special operations medics from the Air Force and their crew. They were shot down by a sniper that hit the tail rotor, I think, hit the tail, and that thing went crashing down. As a matter of fact, every morning that I woke up, the wreckage from Pedro 66 was right outside my door. So I was constantly wondering what was going on there. Now, to kind of give you an understanding of what Sangin was like if you watch Star Wars. Sangin was like that rebel bar that you go to and that they went to in Tatooine. It was like all the scummiest people of the Taliban and whoever lived in Sangin. It was the hub of all major transport. We had like Dishkas up the wazoo. Dishka's a 12.7 millimeter. I think it was 12.7. Forgot what it was. It's bigger than a 50 cal anti-aircraft gun. We had like 50 of those loose in that area. It was crazy. It was bomb-making material, like constant bomb-making material. They're pretty much using the river to go down to Pakistan in order to move all the stuff through. They'd move the heroin through Pakistan, then the guns would come up through there, and right into Sangin was the kind of main location. Well, they did not like our presence there, to be honest with you. They did not like us there. They wanted to
imagine that.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly. Then the next aspect that people have to know is Sangin is actually a jungle.
Not many people associate Afghanistan with a jungle. I said not many people associate Afghanistan being a jungle.
Right. And to call it a jungle is a little bit extreme, but that's the best way to kind of put it because it's a massive green zone, right? So you have a big desert area, but then on the south side of the river where all the water kind of evaporates and stuff, it's a massive green zone. So now we're fighting a different war because now we're fighting in a green zone now too as well. So we're fighting desert and we're fighting jungle at the same time in this location. And there's a lot of cover and they have a lot of cover in there. And they're massively fortified and they have tons of infrastructure and all this other stuff. So to be honest with you, the base that I was on, I mean, we were getting bombarded with mortars and we were having to climb the walls. When I first showed up there, we were climbing the walls of our own, like the HESCO barriers, like everybody on the walls right now with your fucking weaponry, like firing, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner kind of deal. So it was a pretty extreme change of pace. Like before that, it was like a couple ticks, couple engagements, all this other stuff. But now we're in Sangin where they dominate the land. It's very well fortified. It's very well, like tons of infrastructure for the Taliban. And you have the top 10 HVIs, like high value individuals there. So I'm chasing after these people, right?
So you intelligence, like you getting hands on, you have access to these people, and that's part of your job is to find these people, right?
My job is to go into there and try to find people who are willing to give information on the Taliban and then run source operations that way. So yeah, I'm the big thing is I show up and that's the first thing I got to do. Go on patrols, learn the AO, know what the area is. Try to set up things where I can
people who don't know what's an AO.
AO is an area of operations.
All right.
I got to remember not to use the acronyms, but yeah.
Just explain them. I like the acronyms.
That's fine. Perfect. But so this all kind of leads up to July 16th, 2010. Before this, I'd gone on quite a few patrols and done a few things. I've been there now probably in Sangin probably about like a good month, I'd say.
And this whole time you're attached to a Marine Recon unit, right?
No, I'm not with Recon yet. Recon doesn't come until after I get back from Afghanistan.
Okay. All right.
However, I mean, there's some attachment to it, but I'm not directly attached to them. I'm attached to 3-7, but now I'm not really with 3-7. I'm with RCT-2, but I'm also attached to 40th Commando because I'm there on their base, and I'm the one of 14 Americans right now, pretty much getting things set up for American troops to come into this location 2 months later. So I'm the first one on the ground pretty much pumping intelligence into the American intelligence cycle and then taking what I can get from the Brits and then taking what I can get from the ANA and setting up all the intelligence and source operations in that area because we don't have anything going on. Now, lo and behold, we did have CIA assets in that area. So the CIA paramilitary, I got to say paramilitary because it wasn't direct, but at the time they flew in. They're like, hey, we can't fly in here all the time, so you're going to manage some of our guys. And then I'm working with an ODA as well that's just south of us. I got one of their sources by accident, so then we had to work together and we had to swap the sources out. So I got a direct asset British SAS guy and a MI5 guy there that we're all running stuff together. So I'm working with some serious high level shit at this point in time. As the sole intel collector in this crazy spot with 10 HVIs, high value individuals, and it was a crazy thing. So kind of fast forwarded it all to July 16th, though. I've been there for a month now. I got things going on. Decided to go out on this big patrol. We need to go out and push to see a little bit more of what's going on. I made a good buddy at this point in time, Justice Bartel. He's a staff sergeant at the time, 0369, which means he's a platoon sergeant. He's an infantry platoon sergeant. So when you pick up staff sergeant, you become a 0369 instead of a 0311 or 03 whatever. You're now a platoon sergeant, which is a big fucking deal, right? But he's there. He's one of the 14 Americans that are there. He's kind of helping coordinate stuff as far as how the infantry is supposed to move into this RCT, into the spot. Me, Justice, and I have an analyst that's attached. He's not my direct analyst. He's an analyst with the RCT, but they essentially gave him to me because otherwise he wouldn't be doing any fucking work. So we all decide, hey, we're going to go out on this patrol today. Today's a good day patrol. We kind of want to go get some anyway. July 16th, it's about 132 degrees outside at its peak. When it's like 80 degrees, it's like 80% humidity as well. It's wild. We decided to go out a little bit early. So it's me, him, Brian Keene, or Corporal Keene at the time. And then we're on 2 sticks. So it's like 34 or 35 guys, 2 sticks of 17 that are going out. All the rest are Brits. So we're doing a brother-sister stick. We're just going to kind of do a massive loop around each other and kind of go out, do a presence patrol, see what's going on, see what we can get into, see what the enemy's doing, and then we're going to come back to the base, right? Probably an hour into the patrol, we're deciding to start our loop and go around, and we're going through kind of the jungle, down some stream, whatever. And then we're climbing over a wall to kind of start wrapping around so we can meet up with our sister stick, and then we'll wrap around. And we halt in this one spot, and we have our guys canvassing, our engineers in the front that are canvassing and saying, hey, there's IEDs here, IEDs there. They think they got a hit on an IED. And we're in this one location. Like I said, we just climbed over this wall, and I'm kind of stepping down, and all of a sudden I feel this insane, like, things shoot through my spine, right? Like this feeling, like this prickly feeling of like, be on alert. And in that moment, I've never told this part of the story, but I'll tell it to you. In that moment, I heard a voice. It was a female voice, and it sounded like it pierces this veil. And it says, don't step out. Don't step out of this line. And I was like, what? Like, what the fuck? Like, this is fucking weird, right? And it's like, don't step out of this line. And then it says, look. And like I felt like drawn to this spot, and I look in the ground, right? And it's in this little slump off this trail. It says it's there. Don't step out of line. And I was like, I don't see anything. It's like well packed or whatever. I can't see anything, right? So then we start moving again. I don't step out of line. We start moving. We go up, and we move into this field, and we get along this line, and we set up. And our sister stick is coming back across the same path that we just passed by. So Justice is in that stick, and I actually see Justice walking back, and we're, oriented towards where the enemy could be in this open field area. And then all of a sudden, as I'm looking back, I just see this giant mushroom cloud, right? And I see a leg, like a whole human leg, ride up the mushroom cloud, right? It's about a 40-foot high cloud. And then all of a sudden, like, everything starts peppering us. So we start to take cover. And then one of the Brits is like, fuck, a fucking foot hit me. And I look over at him, and there's a human foot that just hit him, and he picks it up and he wraps it up and he puts it in his bag. And in that moment, we all realize, like, shit's bad, right? Like, I wasn't screaming and saying, hey, I saw a leg. We got a foot, right? Like, we know we got to run over there. So we all start running over. go provide cover and everything we need to do. And I show up there and there's Justice. He's laying there, and for the sake of his family and all that other stuff, I don't really want to go into too much of the details, but let's just say he was in very, very bad shape, right? He was missing limbs. Probably the worst I've seen up to that point, that was probably one of the worst I've seen a human body be in. And he's taking a breath like once every 45 seconds. And I'm just like looking at him, and they're patching up and they're doing the best they can. I'm just looking at him real quick. Like I'm looking at him and I'm like, fuck, man, like exactly what you don't want to be in, right? Like exactly where I don't want to be in. And I just looked at him and, kind of welled up the only thing that I really could say in that moment. I said, you're going to be all right, man. Like everything's going to be all right. And like, he wasn't with us, but like in that moment, like you don't know what to say, but you're just everyone knows what's happening. He's about to pass away, right? You're kind of hoping that he does too, in all honesty, but you kind of just say what you got to say as like your last words or whatever. And that one kind of sucked because Justice and I were pretty close. He was kind of like, in a way, like kind of all I had at that spot as far as a friend was concerned. So he was a great guy, and I was just floored at that moment too. Like I feel like I had every right in the world to just be fucking livid and do like just go fucking ape shit, but I snapped back too in that moment, and I was like, shit, there's stuff that needs to be done. Like I can't just stand here and mourn, and I can't just stand here in the way. Like I gotta fucking get back to fighting the war. You know what I mean? Like we're at war right now. Like shit's gonna happen.
Shit's kicking off right now, right? They started an ambush.
This is what starts happening is the ICOM chatter starts going off. This is when the Taliban, like whenever there's a bomb that goes off, that's what they're doing. Now they're going to go set up an ambush. And we start seeing military age males on the back of mopeds fucking zipping to their positions. And everyone's like, fuck. So someone screams at me real quick. There's a JDAM crater that's right here. That's why this spot's so important. We call that JDAM village because it's a fucking giant hole, 20 feet deep, shape of a fucking V cone. And I look down at the bottom of this V cone and there's like bags on fire down there. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go and start gathering up gear before I'm going to go pick this gear up so we know where it's at. And then I'm going to go get my position. And I go down, I grab this gear, I get fucking electrocuted because there's a our minesweeper battery was like exploded and it was on the backside of it. So I grabbed it and I got fucking electrocuted and I got all these burns all over my hand from that. And I'm fucking like, I felt like I got shot because it like zipped through my whole body. I'm like, fuck. So now like shit's fucking all over the place, right? Shit's on fire. We got 3 guys that are fucking badly injured. One dude's missing his eyes, or like blown up. Another guy, is it 3 guys or 2 guys? Justice is in bad shape. I think it was two or three. I think it was 3 on that first one. So we got 3 guys down out of the 32 or 34 or whatever. I get up. I go on a sector. I cover my sector. I'm up and elevated now because I really don't want to be walking on the fucking ground because we don't know what else is coming.
Yeah.
I had a pretty crazy story happen here, but for the sake of time, I'll just kind of save it. But regardless, like I had a pretty clean shot on someone, and I had to go through a whole moral thing in that moment because I had saw some other things in XYZ, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, long story short, we're ready to evac Justice and Rosie. And they're like, all right, hey, come on, let's go. Like, we need to move these guys out. We're going to be the first 3. So I have Crooksy, who's the point man. I have another gentleman that's right in front of me. And then I'm the third person to get ready to go across this field to our CCP. CCP is a casualty collection point. It's about 140 meters away, and it's across about 100 yards of open field to this one spot. Now, just to remind you, we had already seen the mopeds moving. We had already seen that the Taliban was moving to get in position.
They were getting ready.
And now we're crossing this open field. Each one of us is carrying about 100 pounds of gear ourselves. It's 132 degrees out at this point, 80% humidity. 80% humidity. Crooksy starts moving. Other guy starts moving, and I'm about 15 feet behind Crooksy. And I see Crooksy start to go down the little hole. And in that moment, I remember that voice. The voice that said, don't step there. And he's about to step right there. And I remember getting ready to say, no, like, don't. And all of a sudden, I see a fucking ball of fire wrap around Crooksy's body.
Mm.
I see the guy in front of me starting to turn like this. He's like, oh shit. And then a ball of fire wraps around him, comes into me, and I get blown into a wall. Fuck. And I remember hearing all of the dirt and debris hitting my helmet, and I kind of come to about 20 seconds later or whatever, and I open my eyes and everything's brown. I remember the first thing I do, because I'm sitting up against this wall, my rifle slung like this, and I'm kind of just slumped over like this. My helmet's all jacked up, and I'm just like, what the fuck? And then the first thing I start doing is just patting my legs and then checking to see if my junk's still there.
Quick check.
Quick check. I'm good to go. I get up. I start moving, and I see the two guys that are laying there, and I see Crooksy, who's now gone. He took the full – I remember seeing it. I can visually see it. I can remember now looking back, seeing him take the full – he was stepping, and his whole body just absorbed the entire thing.
So he basically saved y'all.
His whole body, yeah. It created such a funnel off of his body that everything wrapped around, and I didn't receive anything. The guy behind me, as he was turning, he got shrapnel, like peppered rocks, into his butt cheeks. And he couldn't walk, but he's alive and he has nothing else. So now we have 5. We have 2 KIA essentially and 3 wounded that can't move. So now we're down from 32 to what? Right? 28. We got to bandage these guys up, and now we still have to go across. So we've now just faced 2 dismounted IED strikes with 5 casualties. And now we have to move 5 bodies essentially across 100 yards plus with 100 pounds of gear on across after getting blown up twice, after seeing your best friend just get killed.
And the Taliban in position now.
So I grab Crooksy, who's now on a stretcher, and I grab him with 3 other guys, and we just dart. Oh, yeah, by the way, I forgot there's a marked IED too. We don't know. I don't know where this IED is, but the engineer said, hey, there's an IED. It's marked. So I know there's IEDs around, but I just don't know where they are. I can't see shit. I don't know what's going on. So fucking just the most fucked up situation I think that someone could – not the most fucked up, but this is a pretty fucked up situation at the end as far as war is concerned. So I grab Crooksy and the other guys, and we jet across, and we start running, like humping as much as we can to bring them to this casualty collection point. We don't stop once. We just keep going. But when we get to the casualty collection point, which is now an ATV with a trailer on the back of it, we drop Crooksy in there, and we're like, go, 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 go. And all of us just hit the deck and just like, we're just panting. Like, fuck, that was fucking hard, right? Like physically and mentally exhausting for all this stuff.
Absolutely it is.
I was sitting there and I'm just fucking sweating profusely, and I'm feeling sorry for myself because my best friend, my good friend at the time, you know, I know he's not going to make it, and I just saw some crazy shit, and I just got blown up and all this other crazy stuff. And there was a guy there. His name was Smith, Sergeant Smith. He was the platoon leader for the 40th Commandos. And I remember he saw us just fall to the deck and just start kind of sitting there feeling sorry for ourselves. And he starts screaming. And he's like, get your fucking ass up. And this is a British guy too, so he's got a British accent. But he's like, get your fucking ass up, Marines. There's more Marines out there that are depending on you. And that's all I had to say. In that second, like I shit you not, it was like a fucking robot switch. Something turned on me. I just got up and I just started fucking running across that field as fast as I fucking could.
No thought, all fucking instinct and reaction.
It was all, dude, there was something that snapped too. It was almost like going back to boot camp. It was almost like when the drill instructors are yelling at you, you either go or you don't go. You know what I mean? And like, I just went. Like, I was just like, oh shit. Like, I remember saying that, like, oh shit. And I just got up and I started fucking running. And I got back to the edge where we were at, you know, to collect the other casualties, where we're at, where everything happened. And I remember turning around. I'm like, where the fuck is everybody? Like, nobody else fucking got up to grab him with me. And I remember saying that. I'm like, nobody else came. Like, what the hell? And they're like, don't fucking worry about it. Just grab it and let's go. And I don't know what's really going on at this time because, like I said, I was kind of in a state. But he was on a ladder. This was the guy that was in front of me with the butt cheeks, right? And I remember that part because, like, he was faced up and he was still talking. And he was on a ladder, right? Like, we had like a partial ladder that we would use to climb over walls and stuff. And I grabbed one of the things and I turned around and I start running. And the dude's screaming on the freaking ladder. And he's like, oh, shit, oh, shit, oh, shit. And I'm like, I have fucking no clue what this guy's screaming about, but like, whatever. And then like in that moment, I start realizing, and I look in front of me and I just see the ground getting fucking peppered, just tat, 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 like dust kicking up, like all over in front of the lane in front of me. And then I remember looking up and I saw a fucking exploded RPG above my head. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And I remember looking at that moment across the other direction, and I see fucking 4 machine gun positions just opening up fire, just talking guns, da, 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 da. And I remember seeing it skipping in front of me, and I'm like, oh shit, motherfucker, we're getting L-shaped ambushed by the Taliban right now, like, and we're the fucking targets because we're out in the open. And then I remember looking ahead at where the CCP was, and I see all the dudes that didn't come back, and they're up on these fucking mounds, and they're just engaging, and I'm like, oh shit, that's why they didn't run back. You know what I mean? Like, they're fucking engaging the enemy, and the enemy's been fucking firing at us for the last 10, 15 minutes now. And I had no clue other than just to fucking go. Well, I wouldn't say 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe it was 5 minutes, but, you know, tachypsychia and all that shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit, I didn't realize this. Like, I didn't know, right? Like, I just kind of snapped to, like I said, and I went to go help people, help whoever needed to. And we got across the field. Don't know how. No fucking bullet wounds, no nothing. Just fine. And I dropped the dude on the ladder, and I'm like, dude, fucking, you got a rifle, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, fucking start engaging, bro. Like, let's go. And I just sprint fucking back across that field again because I didn't know if there was anybody left over there. So I sprint across this field, and I go back to where we had our casualties again. And there's like 3 or 4 guys that are there, and I forgot what they were part of. They'd wrapped around after, and they came from the main base after everything went, but they're like, hey, like, we got all this gear, like, we collected all your gear from the 5 wounded, and I think it was like 2 backpacks and like 3 rifles. So they're like, hey, like, fucking throw this on and carry that over there. You guys are gonna need the fucking ammo and guns. And I was like, fucking Roger, let's go. So I threw that shit on top of all my kit, and I just fucking sprinted across again.
So you're running through an ambush in the crossfire. Oh, you see? Are you aware of anything, or you're just in total fucking survival training mode? Are you noticing?
I'm aware at this
point. Are you hearing everything?
I wasn't aware until I started seeing the bullets hitting the ground, and then the RPG that blasted above my head. I wasn't aware up until that point. And then after that, I was fully conscious of what was going on.
Yeah.
But everybody else was engaging. You know what I mean? I was the only one that wasn't engaging at the time. So I'm not going to just sit there and be like, okay, I want to fucking get some too, but there's still work to be done. There's still things that need to be, there's still the potentiality that there could be another guy on a stretcher over there. I don't know how many people are brought across yet. We had 5 and I only saw 2 or 3 people get brought across. So they're engaging the enemy. I'm not engaging the enemy right now. I'm capable of doing it. So I'm going to go and fucking take up this mantle. You know what I mean? I'm going to fucking rock and roll this shit. I didn't get shot the first time. You know what I'm saying? So I was just, I think in that moment, like, dude, I'll tell you what, the IEDs are scarier than getting shot.
I couldn't imagine.
The IEDs are 1,000 times scarier. And if you can motivate yourself to run across a field like that, not knowing what your next step is going to be like, it doesn't matter about getting shot. Like, I would rather guns all day long than fucking bombs in the ground, if I'm being 100% honest.
So you shit on yourself thinking, what's my next step going to turn into? You're not even worried about the crossfire, hearing the bullets snapping and popping.
I'm not worried about anything at that moment. I'm worried about getting my job done. I'm worried about getting stuff back and then returning and then providing supporting fire. So I finished running across the field for my third, technically 5, 6. So 6th time running across, but 3rd trip. And then now I'm able to engage. And I run up to Keen. I see Keen. I'm like, Keen, orient me. What the fuck is going on? He's like, dude, shut the fuck up and just start firing over there. And I'm like, all right, Roger. And I'm just like, got fucking getting some, you know what I mean? And then we're fucking lobbing smoke out, and we're fucking have no clue what's going on, but there's a village over there, and we're just like, fuck these motherfuckers. We're going to destroy them. And then we got a whole base behind us with like 50 cals and all sorts of shit. And they're fucking just throwing down with like massive weapons on the enemy out. They're about the crazy part is like the machine gun positions. The Taliban always engage us at their maximum effective range of their weaponry. So that's another reason why getting shot at by them wasn't so scary. They're shooting literally at 1,200 meters on their RPG or on their RPKs and stuff like that, on their machine guns. So they're trying to stay in this tree line and stay invisible, right? And they're just trying to hit us at their max engagement, and they're just hoping that they hit us, right? It's not like there's a RPK over there 400 meters away, and you're like, oh shit, like I'm seeing crazy missile flashes, like I'm getting shot at accurately. This is like getting peppered. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still gonna fucking kill you. There's still terminal ballistics.
It'll still kill you, yes.
Yeah, and it'll still injure you, and it's not a good day, but.
Well, it's not like you had this coordinated post where somebody's spotting and directing fire into different positions. It's just they're over there spraying and praying.
Yeah, and you're fighting against Hajis too. So, even though I do consider the Taliban to be pretty formidable enemies. Now, I'm not saying they're not like a first world nation type of military, right? You know, I wouldn't put that in the same level of training as like maybe a Russia or a China or something like that, but still.
Yeah, but those guys are ruthless. That's all they do is fight. They've been fighting since they became us.
That's part of their legacy, man. Like
exactly.
These motherfuckers can repeat the name of their 37th great grandfather who did what and recite what he did in the tribe. You know what I mean? Like
you got to have some kind of respect for that.
100% do. So there's that story.
Well, dude, I know I promised you more than an hour, but I can't. I have an engagement after this at 9:15.
No worries.
I want to do a part 2. But before we part ways, and thank you for that story, it's interesting, and I think I speak in behalf of everybody, and thank you for your service to our country.
No worries.
Because you're out there, and I don't mean to say that to put you on the spot. I genuinely mean that, and you know I do. So, but I want you to quickly... So we're going to get on a part 2. This is no doubt about it. We got to have a part 2. I really didn't think it would run this long, but I want you to tell us about what we're going to talk about next. You know, how you come out of the military and
sure
about some of the things that you experienced. Like, tell us what we're looking forward to in a part 2.
I'm glad we stopped here because this was the birth, if that makes any sense. This was the death. This was kind of like the death and the rebirth. Because the reason why I mentioned that story that part of the story where I heard that voice is because we're going to go down some kind of weird territory where that was actually what had kind of opened my eyes up to the meaning of everything and why things happen, and that there's other things and other powers and other things greater than you that are kind of not steering or nudging, but you know, you have a story and everything's meant for that to happen to you, so to speak. And a lot of the things that happen to you in life are meant for your evolution, right? If you have the choice, you make the choice to say yes to your journey, it's meant for you to evolve, you know? And the remainder of the story, that was kind of the beginning. That was the piercing. That was the beginning of the switch of the mindset, right? That explosion, everything that happened was like kind of an explosion of consciousness in a way.
Well, this is why I wanted to make it at least here, because I know this. And I want you to just talk a little bit about the transition and what you're going to be getting into for next show.
Next part 2, we'll talk about me coming home. And we'll talk about the things that also happened when I came home. Be it the depression, the thoughts of things that happened, the things that... And this isn't just war related either. So I don't want it to be thought of as like, oh, you got PTSD from war. It was a cultural thing. It was coming home. It was coming back to this place and seeing things for what they were. That really did me in. And then still belonging and trying to cling to that culture and that reality. And then having that fall apart. And then having to kind of rebuild from there. And then going on even deeper heroic journeys through the spiritual side. And then learning how to pull myself back together, developing a philosophy, writing books, getting into all the things that I got into, and then kind of ending up here.
And I'm here to tell y'all it gets more interesting and more in depth. You're going to want to tune in for the part 2, I promise you. And I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to announce it ahead of time. And so we'll put a pin in it. We'll stop right there.
Sounds good.
And what he said, excited for the part 2. God bless you two gentlemen. See ya. You too, Henry. Look, we got a few comments in there. I'm not going to go over the comments. We really don't have time. Somebody said I'm Cajun as fuck. Yes, I am. 100%. Thank you. And dude, it's great having you. Always great to talk. We talk enough to know where we're at and what's going on. And thank you for coming on to the show, and thank you everybody for coming in, especially from your camp. It means a lot to come in for the support. And if you haven't yet, hit that like, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to see part 2. This is going to be interesting. I promise you, you want to be here for it. And thank you, DT, for my admin, always showing up, hanging in. Thank you, brother. And
thank you.
We're going to end it there. You got any last words? You want to tell them about where to find you? How did you book? Do you have any links you're going to put in?
If you want to see some of my work, obviously you can just look me up on Amazon or Gumroad. But actually, I think the best thing that you could do is just go to my Instagram if you guys want to communicate or find out anything further. Lysander X Caligo. I'm the only one on there, so Lysander X Caligo. Add me on IG, and then you could DM me and then find out other things from there. That'd probably be the easiest thing to do.
And I'm going to have all your Instagram, your Gumroad, everything in the description. This link's going to be in the description if y'all want to see. He's written some great stuff. Got an awesome perspective and view of things. Very interesting. So, well, thank you again, man. And thank you everybody for coming in. We're going to end it here.
Thanks for having me on.